welcome back, peeps, to the wonderful episode of The World of Ted, where we explore how single Latter-day Saints can learn, live, and love truly enjoyable dating. Got another article here from Sister Ramona Morris from Exponent. I thought we'd finish up with her articles. We'll move on to some other topics, and I guess if she writes something more, we might come back to it. I'm just really at odds. So anyway, let's start this up and get this going. I hope this article turns out to be a lot more enjoyable than the last one we looked at, because the last one was clearly something of clickbait. Although, there's a lot of stuff in there we obviously talked about. It gave us, good fodder for discussion. I hope this one will give us that way too. Dear LDS men, I am not your fetish. Now, this one was written just a little bit before the last one that we looked at. So I don't know where this is going to come out from, but yeah. Let's just dive in and see where we go with this. And again, I have not read this article, so we're going to learn about things together here. One of my favorite stories to tell the missionaries during my early lessons in preparation for baptism was the tale of how I broke my ex-boyfriend's arm after finding out he cheated on me with my best friend. Wow, so you're a convert. That's good to know. Explain some of the perceptions you have about marriage and about dating. I've always considered myself a vocal person. Before joining the church almost 4 years ago, I had no problem telling people off. I've been a member of the church all my life. I don't have any problem telling people off. I don't care who they are. I had no fear of senior members at church who abused the missionaries by taking their kindness for weakness. What is that supposed to mean? Most importantly, I never hesitated in speaking up for myself in situations where I felt uncomfortable. Since my baptism, however, I found I've somehow grown used to being uncomfortable, even at the risk of my own happiness, while trapped in a constant cycle of toxic positivity. Toxic positivity? What are you talking about? Well, hopefully she'll elucidate this. Let's find out. Recently, with growing pressure to find myself an eternal companion from friends and leaders alike, I threw myself into the crazy world of LDS dating. In time, I found myself messaged by men who were old enough to be my father with messages most would find highly inappropriate. Oh, gosh. Well, first of all, I'm not going to belittle your experience. I'm not going to try to delegitimize it and say that these sorts of things don't happen and this is the exception and not the rule. I'm not going to say anything about this. If this is what you've experienced, then it's real. The age gap thing, we can talk about the age gap thing. I understand where the age gap's coming from, right? A lot of that is coming from, quite frankly, it's coming from men who are allowing the natural man to dominate their dating decisions. The natural man values youth and beauty. So he's not going to be interested in someone who doesn't have youth and beauty. That's where a lot of that age gap thing's coming from. They're allowing the natural man to dominate their dating decisions. And I'll excoriate that just as much as I excoriate women who allow the natural woman to dominate their dating decisions. There's things that happen on both sides of it. And we talk about that here in the World of Ted. So that's where a lot of that is coming from. With messages most would find highly inappropriate. Well, their messages should be appropriate. So if they're not appropriate, then that's a big problem. And we need to take a stand against that. Still, I pressed on. What good was it enduring to the end and putting my shoulder to the wheel if I didn't expect it to get sore? I feel uneasy about that question. I scrolled endlessly through profiles each day, comparing photos and picturing fairy tale endings, reminding myself the importance of seeking the one. Oh, lots of problems right there, right? First of all, you're looking for this idealized person who, quite frankly, doesn't exist. And if he did exist, he probably wouldn't have any interest in you. Second, there is no one. You're seeking the one. There is no one. Okay? There's a group of people who are good for you. And any member of that group who's good for you will give you the maximum amount of happiness that you can have. That's the reality. And that's what you need to start embracing. In my mind, I kept hope alive that my efforts would be rewarded, so I could free myself of the revolving cycles of engagements, weddings, and baby announcements before I threw up from the anxiety these celebrations brought to my life. I didn't listen to that silent voice that told me to chuck those expectations of LDS women into the trash to improve my mental health. Instead, against my better judgment, and betraying the strong feminist within myself who was screaming bloody murder at the stupidity of it all. Is that the strong feminist, or is that the natural woman who's screaming? I logged into these dreaded dating applications, finding myself consumed by images of young men cuddling babies for the sake of proving they could be a viable candidate for fatherhood. Well, okay, first of all, there's so many things wrong here. But let me just start with the end here. Whatever picture you're putting up on online dating, which first of all, online dating is, in some ways, it's better to just ignore online dating. If you want to engage online dating as part of a range of things that you're doing to pursue eternal marriage, that's fine. But too many of us rely solely upon online dating, which is a huge, huge mistake. First of all, if you're a man, the business model of these online dating sites are built around thirsty men. It's not about helping you get married. It's about keeping you single. Again, if you had designed for thirsty men and helping them to stay single, then it's not really going to help the women to get married either. So you want to just keep that in mind when you're going to these online dating sites. But if you do want to use them, if you do think it should be part of the range of approaches that you take towards your search for your eternal companion, then you got to be, very mindful of what you put in your profile. So, if you're putting in an image of you with a baby, then it should probably be because you're taking care of a baby. I mean, for the sake of proving you could be a viable candidate for fatherhood, that you don't want to do the PR thing with this, right? You want to show things as they really are, So if you're somebody who spends a lot of time reading, have your picture taken with books. If you're somebody who spends a lot of time playing video games, a picture of you playing video games is appropriate. Okay? I mean, you want to show who you really are. Okay? Now at the same time, it's okay to put your best foot forward. I mean, these selfies that people take where they just put a picture of themselves standing in front of a mirror, that needs to go. Okay? Because that just screams amateur. That just screams like you don't really care about putting your best foot forward. You want to be truthful, yes, but at the same time, it's okay to hire a professional and, get some professional headshots done. Dress up a little bit, you'll put your best foot forward. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, it'd probably be a huge improvement over a lot of what's actually out there. And then this whole thing about listen to that silent voice that told me to chuck those expectations of LDS women into the trash to improve my mental health. Oh, gosh, where do I start with this one? Well, okay, let's just go. I got a better idea. Look at the clock and think. Let's just go through. We haven't even gotten very far into this. Let's dig in through it. I think I'm going to be able to respond to that with some other things that she'll probably say if I'm right. Again, I haven't read this, but I'm guessing she's probably going to say some stuff. It'll give me opportunity to say what needs to be said here. So let's just keep going. Now, this isn't my first rodeo with dating. At 28 years old, I was on the quickly reaching the peak of YSA retirement, which meant that if I wanted to find my future husband, I needed to kickstart my journey if I didn't want to become a leftover woman. Oh, this thinking needs to go out the door, right? Okay, first of all, just because you're in your 30s doesn't mean you're left over. If you're single in your 30s, it doesn't mean you're left over. It means that you didn't make the choices that needed to be made for you to get the result that you wanted to get. That's all it means. And sometimes, we make choices based on the understanding that we have, and that understanding isn't always aligned with the way things really are. So if we've got faulty assumptions in our head, we're thinking we're doing our best to do the right thing, but nothing's working out. When in actuality, nothing's working out, not because we're not putting in the requisite effort, but because we're putting requisite effort in the wrong direction, on the wrong things. And we're putting emphasis on the wrong things because we've got faulty assumptions, faulty perspectives, self-talk that's not really helpful. We've got to change our attitude. We've got to change the way that we think. And that'll help us to make better choices. Understand the way things really are. That'll help us to make better choices so that we again get more of the results that we really want. That's where it really comes down to. Still, I was surprised when I matched with someone who seemed to tick most of my boxes. Well, you got that laundry list you got to have. I wish I knew then that this wasn't some fairy tale waiting to happen, but instead was simply one of the frogs I needed to run over on my never-ending quest. Very quickly, I began growing closer to this individual. We exchanged numbers and socials. With my self-confidence lower than ever after being rejected by a Utah boy I had no business having feelings for. I love the way she words that. That's great. I somehow went into a dangerous trap of wanting someone to care for me, even if I didn't care much for myself. Well, that is a dangerous trap. You got to be good with you on the inside before you start having other people be good for you. You got to be good with you first on the inside. Soon I began to see fractures in the foundation. What had gone from introductory photos turned into this individual asking for photos constantly. In the short space of 2 weeks, our chats had gone from normal conversations and turned into asking for intimate images of myself. Oh, gosh. Okay, this is a guy that if you see this, the first thing you need to do is, first of all, tell this guy off. Tell him to go away. The second thing you need to do is report him. There's got to be like some sort of, admin account where you could just, send abusive stuff. And that's exactly what this is. If this is what I'm thinking it is. It is abusive. You're asking for inappropriate things, right? So you clearly have no business being on an LDS dating site if you're doing that. No business whatsoever. And you should be reported. And if, the people that are running the site have any sense of responsibility, they're going to do something with this guy so he doesn't do it again. That's really what it is. You just have zero tolerance for that sort of thing. At first, I played along. Oh, jeez. Now you're making it worse. If you don't just take a stand the first time you see this and have a zero tolerance policy for it, you are encouraging these people to continue on in this bad behavior. Don't play along with it. Put a stamp on it. Just say no to this. If it's wrong, you don't put up with it. I would send a headshot of myself, but soon see these demands become more regular. Eventually, the conversation evaporated entirely. I soon became to realize, despite everything that had gone wrong in previous relationships, I deserve so much more than the basic fetishization that I was receiving. That's very true. You do. My dating accounts have remained inactive. Things still haven't worked on the romance front, but I have truly discovered my self-worth. I recognize that no one deserves to be fetishized, no matter how nice or charming they may seem. Most importantly, I discovered that being alone in good company is better than an eternity of settling for less than what we deserve. So many mixed feelings here at the end. So, I agree that being alone in good company is a better alternative. I don't think that the alternative to being alone in good company is necessarily an eternity of settling less than what we deserve. There's a part of me that feels like this is more hypergamy than anything else. That the natural woman and her hypergamous desire to want the best, that only the best will do. If we can't have the best, then that somehow says something about us, ourselves. Settling for less than what we deserve. What you deserve is to be maximally happy, to be as happy as you could possibly be. And that's the result you get when you make the choices that lead to that end. And the choices that lead to that end are going to be aligned with the fundamentals of the dating journey, which is something that we just, singles and singles groups and singles forums don't typically talk about the fundamentals. But we talk about the fundamentals here and on Join the Journey Radio, because that's what's going to help us to make better choices so we can actually enjoy our dating journey more. And not just when we find that special someone that everything just connects and we get to that happy fairy tale ending. We can have joy all along our dating journey, even in the interactions that don't completely work out for us and don't lead us to the end that we all really want. We can be maximally happy all along our journey and not just in certain parts of it or at the end. And it comes by making choices that are aligned with the fundamentals. And that's why we talk about fundamentals here on the program. I don't blame you for your dating accounts remaining inactive. I really don't. People just get tired and sick of it. And I understand it. A lot of it's because we're not approaching it right. Things still haven't worked on the romance front, but I've truly discovered my self-worth. I don't understand how you discovered your self-worth. You really go into that. I mean, I agree with the fact that you shouldn't be some man's fetish. I'm with you there. At the same time, where is this self-worth coming from? If it's anything like what we read in the last article, which is actually written just after this one, so I'm guessing you're not getting your self-worth from the place where it really needs to come from, which is from your Heavenly Father. From the realization that you're a child of God. That's where it really needs to come from. And I wish you would have gone into that more here. Being alone in good company is better than a journey of settling for less than what we deserve. Let's not think in binary terms again. It's not one or the other. Life is a constant search for the solution to the problems that we'll always have. It's like when you're married, you're gonna just you won't have some of the problems that you had when you were single, but you will have other problems. And no matter what we go through in life, whatever chapter of life we're in, whatever point we are on the eternal journey, we're always going to have some difficulty, some sort of challenge. And, life is about how we meet those challenges, looking for the solutions to overcome those challenges, whatever point we're at. So it's not so much about being one or the other as it is about the best you can with what you got. And I think that's missing. That perspective is missing in a lot of our discussions. And I really wish we would embrace that a lot more. Well, let's see. We have some comments about this. 15 comments. I'm looking at the clock. So, yeah, let me tell you something. I'm just gonna call it good here and end this episode of The World of Ted. Thank you everyone for watching. Come back next time. We're going to dig into these comments here, and I'll talk more about what goes on with these comments here. I suspect I'm going to have to talk more about the difference between the natural man and woman on the one hand, and the covenant man and the covenant woman on the other. So come back for that next time on The World of Ted, where we explore how single Latter-day Saints can learn, live, and love truly enjoyable dating. See you next time.